All right, so the topic is simple. It's indecision. It's quite unpleasant to be called indecisive, but it's might be even worse to be such. And I want to share with you something about the indecision and where does it come from, because I've been struggling with it myself, and I'm the kind of person which would rather prefer to be straightforward with things. We have a basic human problem, as that we have the plural needs, right? So we have many needs to cover. We need to be fed, we need to drink water, we need to be safe, we need to belong, we need to have some influence and power and contribution and agency in our life. And all of that, these are a lot of things. And then we have all the social games. So we have pretty much plural needs. And to cover and satisfy those needs, we build plural goals, right? And then they meet at this exact problem when those plural desires, goals, and needs, when they start to compete with each other in the condition of the one we live in, pretty much. And this is the condition of the limited time and limited resources. So in these conditions, the plural goals start competing with each other, and we have an important task to do. This is an executive task. This is the task of prioritization and of figuring out what to put first and what to put second and so forth, and what to choose, essentially, what to commit to. And this is a hard question to make. And first of all, because you do the decision making in the conditions of relative uncertainty. You don't know all the things, you don't understand all of the things, and you never will. There's always will be that ambiguity you don't know how to deal with. And it tells something about commitment and about also this problem with decision making, is that sometimes we think commitment to be a proof of a correct path. If I choose that and that only, I'll commit to it, that's how it will be right. Because I'll be committing and dedicating myself to that, right? But because you are making your decisions in the framework of a dynamic, changing realities and of a constant uncertainty, it's probably not going to be the only correct path to be choosing, and probably your commitment not necessarily would be this proof of these paths to be correct one. And instead, the commitment would be something maybe even better. It would be an acted out value. It would be and it would allow you to make a sufficiently coherent action possible under the conditions where uncertainty is unavailable. So the problem that I mentioned is there. Complete certainty is not available. Sufficient certainty is a lot of times unavailable too. And we have to be making commitment at least to action for sure, if we unless we want to be mobilized for a purpose. So commitment allows us to do that. It allows us to make a sufficiently coherent action, which is very important, because when you want to achieve something great, something major, you need a coherent action to accumulate this value, to accumulate this effort, like to build a business, to build a marriage, to build a family, to build a community. You need an accumulated effort and value. For that, this is what commitment allows you to do. Good. So it also allows you actually to be acting and preserving your action in some direction at least, and not to be endlessly confused by all the plural choices. Now, commitment is great, but the problem is that commitment is then acted out defined value hierarchy. Or just value, right? So you commit to something you value and probably also prioritize, because you actually value lots of things. And now this is not always the case. We don't always have a clearly defined or a strictly defined hierarchy of values. But there is something important which makes us stuck in our choices. Now, I'll need a board here. So when we're facing the fact of competing values and desires, and also dynamically competing values and desires, they are not fixed. That's what makes it hard. If only values and desires would be fixed, we only would need to figure them out great and good, and we would need to go for them and never stop. The problem is that well, those desires are dynamic and changing, and those values are dynamic and changing too. And so it becomes really hard, and we still need to be making a choice here. And when we choose, we do something very difficult. We select something, and we exclude something else. So because conditions are limited, pretty much everything, your attention, your time, your resources, you need to choose specific something and not everything, right? Your capacity limited and everything else. And so you focus and you select and then you exclude, and that's how you prioritize, that's how you manage your decisions. This is called an executive functions in psychology. Good. Now this here is the dilemma of executive functions, and it is that, well, what is that you select and what is that you exclude? Here is your dilemma that you face. Here is where your doubt is produced, right? So because you are not sure, you act. You need to choose in uncertain conditions. Under uncertainty, you are not confident in what to select and what to exclude. Because, well, as you selecting, you're excluding something else, and this is pretty much difficult decision to make. And this dilemma could be being pretty much difficult choice leads you to, well, possibly it leads you to deciding. So possibly it leads you to deciding just faster and committing to some action and seeing it through and figuring it out on the go, even if the realities are uncertain. You choose something which seems more attractive or possible or better for some reasons. So you go for it, and you risk of it being wrong. You risk of you being incorrect, making an incorrect decision, and paying for it. And then and then you figure out your indecisiveness because you went for evidence to see and to test the evidence, and you've been open to recognize if it's you've been open to give it a try and to be learning along the way. Um, but now there is another situation in which they are high stakes, so you care a lot. And in these situations, you develop what is called an anticipation anxiety. So this is when you really foreseeing uh, the trouble, when you're anxious before the real things that are capable of making you anxious. And there are a couple of psychological conditions that are related to anticipation anxiety. Besides of it being unpleasant, it also leads to slower decision making, right? And sometimes actually to paralysis in decision making. So you have here the paralysis that is coming from indecision, and you have it because you maybe don't want to lose on the alternatives. Maybe you're afraid to to act under insufficient knowledge, and you're afraid of the consequences. Basically, maybe you don't want to risk it. Maybe there are all sorts of other reasons, but you are not making a choice, and so you're stuck and these sometimes analysis paralysis. So you start between the alternatives. You don't proceed making a choice. You stuck into indecision, and sometimes, a lot of times, people justify it because sometimes it actually can be reasonable. It is because that serves the purpose, just as the anticipation side serves the purpose, and it's that you when you're anxious, right? You're more pushed to be doing something, right? So, for example, know that anticipation anxiety is nurtured and prolonged by decision, and um, it's also released when decision is made. So as soon as the anticipation anxiety serves its purpose, you be pushed into the decision. It's it's going to go away. Yeah, cancel it for all cases, but it serves the purpose, right? Bring you into making this decision, and then you have doubt, which also pretty much helps you because when you doubt, you are open to discover, you're open to more new information to make a better judgment. And so sometimes when people doubt, when they are in this process of choosing and prioritizing and deciding, they doubt and they think they will gain the sufficient knowledge to be acting on the decision. So they want to transfer, or they think they transfer this doubt into a better judgment. And actually, this, if it would be actual, right, it could be very productive. Doubt can allow you to discover new things. Um, it can allow you to question. It can allow you to search there for more information, knowledge, and make better judgments. Now, that's when it's sufficient. It's sufficient when you use these doubt and maybe anxiety that comes with doubt as well, and you are using it to build your knowledge to make a better judgment. And it's also, well, we know that anticipation anxiety and adapting a big part of it, and thinking and rationalizing and planning, yeah, also part of it, is present in many disorders. It's present in OCD, it's obsessive compulsive disorder, it's present in GAD, general anxiety disorders, um, which are driven by anxiety, right? They are driven by anxiety, and they produce even more distress and anxiety as they stuck you in this anxiety. So that can be self-perpetuating. I don't want that. And how you ensure it's not that is that you either you want to transfer it to better judgment or into commitment to action, because when it's not transferred to the better judgment and then to admitted action, it nurtures immobility, right? It can be the paralysis analysis. You're still in planning. You are just, maybe you're avoiding actually the decision. Uh, Maybe you switching all the time, not actually choosing, not actually committing yourself to anything. Or maybe you constantly again analyzing or something, but not actually committing yourself to action. So it's not transferred into your life. So you're thinking, then transfers to action, and so it becomes impractical. And so yes, it can cause you the paralysis, which mobilizes you. It reduces your movement. You're not going for anything. You're going for nothing. You achieve nothing. You're not growing, right? So and you are not, because there is important things to consider, and these are the costs of your decision. And this is one of the very important things that people in paralysis analysis are prone to not doing, and it's being inconsiderate of the costs of delayed decision. And there are many costs of delayed decision. For example, anticipation anxiety. For example, not go in the absence of evidence, the absence for evidence that would enable the growth. So for some people, they are choosing, then they see, then they understanding, then they are choosing again, they are seeing more, or they are understanding more, so their perception grows with their experience. The people who are not going for new experience, they can be growing, right? And that's how they are sort of paralyzed, and they are indecision. And then the other thing that can be done with that, which also would lead to stagnation, is the premature closure, right? When you're not lost, let's say, maybe among the alternatives, you're close on whatever you've been choosing, let's say, before. And these could be sort of fixed decisions, right? Fixed decisions. You don't want to be having that too, because though it allows you maybe some certainty, still there stagnates too much or grows, and makes you pretty much blind decision making. And it does so because, well, life is dynamic. Your desires, values are dynamic too. Hopefully, your perception is dynamic, but the life is definitely dynamic if you are pretty much. And if you aren't going hand in hand with it, you might fall behind. So you can be blind to the information that needs to be updated. So your current decisions, as your current perception, as your current knowledge, can be outdated. So the premature closure, the fixed decisions, or maybe even the fixed mindset, are stagnating too, because they enable visible movement. And with movement and with the change, or let's say, right, something new experiences, new knowledge, they without this, they also stop the growth. So right. So that's are the things that are damaging in decision, and they are also things that bring a lot of anxiety too. And So with spiritual closure, for example, right, this is inflexibility in cognition, you can say. It's a lot of times, let's say, you would see it in OCD patients. So they would have a lack or difficulty with executive functions. Um, they wouldn't be unable again to prioritize and make decisions, but also they wouldn't be able to take on the new perspectives and alternatives. And this is not helpful because, well, again, OCD is the fixation, right? It's the obsession on something that you already have or had in the past, right? And we do know, well, of course, there is the compulsion effect there, but also why would the obsession be bad? Because, well, at least let's say with OCD, you have the with OCD you have the memory deficiency. Why? Because when you're fixating on something very specific, you have a poorer general knowledge, so you can have a very good memory, very specific memory on some important moment for you in the past, but you can have a very poor general memory, which also would be hurting you, right? So this is the point where this fixation becomes dangerous, and and you can have this fixation when you are indecisive, right? Uh, and preferably you want well, you have natural, let's say, sometimes doubt when at least high stakes the choice need to be made, things prioritized. But what you want to see is you want to see the doubt uh, or any actions along with that which translated into commitment to action. You want, if you have some thinking, you really want to go in for evidence. So let's say this is a good theoretical practice for people with anxiety problems is to look for the evidence, to be evidence testing. To be evidence testing, you need to be testing actually, right? So you need to be going for the evidence. You don't have to be expecting the information for the evidence. Now, this would require for you to really have a very important characteristic, and it is the insensitivity to uncertainty. Not a full insensitivity, but at least not sensitivity, right? Because some people not only they would be sensitive, like not be willing to have the uncertainty or deal with uncertainty, they also would be aversive of uncertainty. They would the uncertainty would be bringing them a huge discomfort. That's why they would be constantly doubting and being and constantly have the anticipation anxiety, because they would really want to be avoiding anything that even could be bringing them to this uncertainty, and they would be avoiding to dealing with this uncertainty. So sometimes they would even be avoiding to be in a place to make a choice, right? Or be making decision, or they can be refusing that they need to be making a decision. And that's because they don't want to be dealing with the risk. They want to, and with the risks of uncertainty, and also with the risks of selecting, committing. And then the risks that come alongside with that is excluding and putting aside. So the and now that would be problematic because so it could be productive till to the point where it brings you to when it enables you to moving and changing and moving forward in a direction. Well, this is your goals, like the purpose direction, you'd say. Then it's not enabling when that of it being change producing, nose producing when it's instead immobilizes you, it doesn't allow you to choose, doesn't allow you to act. And sometimes this is exactly what you have. You have anxiety working against you. You're anxious about what might be coming, what kind of things might be coming when you make a choice. And this anxiety may be clear for a long time rationalizing your indecision, but you wouldn't also be noticing and considering the cost of this indecision. So here are the things you can be doing that would really help you in the state of indecision, is that really count for the costs of your indecision. consider all the costs that you're having, but by not choosing or by delaying the choice or by avoiding the choice or whatever that is you're doing. Consider your emotional state, because this is also where your anxiety might lay, your mental state, right? How do I feel myself not making a choice? How do I feeling myself delaying this, evidence checking and uh, making this decision. And also, you can consider if it helps you to become a better decision making, to have a stronger executive functions in your brain, right? This indecision, does it help me to gain a better judgment, or am I pretending that it actually helps me to make better judgment to then make a committed action? Does it allow for a commitment in under conditions where uncertainty is unavailable, or it isn't allowed that? Because if it doesn't allow you to make a commitment under the conditions of uncertainty, or it actually makes you aversive to uncertainty, then it also immobilizes you and it disabling your growth. And that's exactly the reasons why you have these first class motivational speakers like Hormozy saying to you that be willing to be a fool to grow, and then Jordan Peterson saying be willing to be a fool to grow, because it's very important. Why? Because being a fool to grow enables you to grow under conditions of uncertainty, which you always have to do, right? Because you never have complete certainty. And so, well, be considerate not only of the costs of indecision, be considerate of your relationship of uncertainty towards uncertainty. Can you handle it? Are you handling it well? Can you have all this great character you want to be having, all this great life you want to be having under conditions of uncertainty, or not? Or it's only would be great when everything is peaceful and no crisis present and no information is lacking. So be the kind of person who can be acting practically under uncertainty, and look for exact type of character decisions, attitudes that would nurture it. And so, because you don't want again to have aversive attitude towards uncertainty. Why? Because if you do, then you stuck in paralysis analysis, or just paralysis in indecision, because of some other reasons. And the premature foreclosure, like a fixed mind that can be updated to the dynamic changes life. Also, which leads to stagnation. The opt again offers you flexibility for change, but just think, well, you at least can be having, you can have no change at all, or you can have too much change because you don't have an actual commitment. It's also one type of paralysis. You choose something without actually choosing, you're switching to constantly. Right. And then what you want to have your anxiety, anticipation anxiety, to be figured out, because a lot of these, again, anxiety related conditions are actually driven by anxiety too. So you have OCD, you have GHD. These are the disorders driven by anxiety too, right? By the fear too. You have was it the agoraphobia, right? You have the agoraphobia, in which the same thing is that you're fearing, even being afraid, right? Um, you are avoiding even all the places and things that could be bringing you that, because you have a low tolerance to anxiety, maybe. So you want to consider your relation to uncertainty, and you want to consider your relation to anxiety, because your indecision might be driven by intolerance towards anxiety, as intolerance towards uncertainty. It's actually not completely unreasonable. Sometimes, well, lots of patients with the uh, panic attacks or a panic disorder, right? They would be fearing things that make them afraid. They would be fearing the anxiety or the state of the actions itself, and they would be doing so because they have the perceptional belief that for one or the other reasons, they are poor at handling it. So they might think that they will lose the control over themselves, and all the things will go wrong, or they might think that they can hear the heart or beating fast, palpitation, right? The heart palpitation. Or the faint, that they will faint and it will be like the worst ever scenario. Or they will even eventually die, right? So these patients actually, these anxiety disorders, they have the underlying belief that's been triggered by something, maybe some event, maybe by protective parents, maybe by some of their relatives or friends dying from certain physical conditions. They are afraid of physical symptoms. They are that have when they're anxious, right? They think those physical symptoms to be more dangerous than they are. So they're terrified by these physical symptoms. That's what is like their protection. And what is good for them? How are they? What kind of treatment they can be having? They can be again considering uh, how would they instead prefer to deal with their anxiety. Okay, so they have this heart palpitation, they faint, maybe their hands shake, maybe they partially lose control of themselves. You can be, observant of what kind of things happening when you do have it, and then you can choose the direction which you would rather prefer to be having. You can choose the attitude towards those things, and the action or reaction towards the anxiety. And now you would be proactive and not just instinctively reactive to that, because you can be acting. Well, you can form, a decisive attitude towards your anxiety. And what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the heart palpitation, or with fainting, or with shaking hands, hands? And then that might be also easier for you. And then that could uh, decrease your anxiety sensitivity and enable you to decide, right? And another thing, as you notice, is commitment. Commit to action. It's very hard to have a commitment to action when you don't have a defined hierarchy of values. Because it's hard to add out value or define hierarchy of values, like put things first, matter first, when you have not prioritized them. So what you also want to do is you want to be building this hierarchy for yourself, and making, let's say, deciding the underlying values, and then on that, let's say, building the goals and the tasks, or the, let's say, um, the life direction and the tasks, and then already the methods of how exactly you'll be achieving it. So you would even have the hierarchy of the structure within it. And so you would then, when you have a doubt, you have probably an evidence triggering that doubt, you would then ask yourself, what exact level is doubt touching on, this evidence is touching on. This evidence that made me doubt something, doubt my decision, what exactly touches on? Does it touches on my foundational values, my like perceptional beliefs, or does it touch just on methods I'm implementing those? So, for example, if you are valuing self-expression, and because of this, you're some kind of influencer, or you're doing something on media, because you value the self-expression, uh, and let's imagine something didn't work, maybe your account isn't growing, right? So or your video is not viewed. So you could consider this evidence, but not allow this evidence to break each level of the hierarchy, right? It doesn't mean that you're not valuing the self-expression anymore, or that you don't have to be making videos. Maybe you need just to question the methods. Okay, maybe I need to be changing something on the lower level of values, right? And not like no, and I shouldn't be troubled because it's not like this all hierarchy, all my perception in danger. But what you would see with the people that have trouble with anxiety disorders is that for them, the trigger can unleash the whole chain. So that's what you need to be careful for, really. You don't want some low level evidence to shake your underlying perception, because you need a substantive evidence to be shaping substantive things, right, and attitudes and beliefs. So you also would want to be actually allowing yourself to be observed there, and to be considered, right, to be, of course, updating your perception beliefs, but also not being horrifically affected by it. But so you don't want to be immobilized with it, or by it. So and shaken by it. Don't want to be shaken by each choice you to make, and you are not, is that you build the levels of your values, and then when you have the evidence that this video is not working and people are not viewing it, you're changing the method, not your underlying value. It means okay, so it means I need to stop uh, posting it all because I don't value the self-expression and at all anymore, etc. And so I shouldn't be even self-expressing. So you don't want to be as artist as that because that's small evidence would be pointing to something not major yet. So you need to proof test it before being horrified by it. You want to keep your anxiety in check, because it can really be troublesome because your imagination can be grandiose, and you want to really limit it and narrow it down into a productive anxiety that pushes you forward to be practically implementing your goals. And this is indecision. Define your hierarchy and define your underlying perception values, and when you have defined it, you sure at least know what might be changing, what might be more wrong or not, and then you might be, less troubled when the small evidence points out your lack in something. You can use it productively to adapt to it and build a good attitude towards uncertainty. Be courageous and brave. That helps you not to be stuck. And you don't want to be reckless, and you're not reckless when you're considering a lot of things, but you also don't skip that part that paralysis costs you. So when you consider all the things or ups and downs of your decision, consider the cost of delaying it too, and consider the benefits of committing, and consider the benefits of gaining the evidence while trying. And also consider that the character who is weak to act productively and see and learn along the way can be moving faster and improving faster. And this is an advantage in itself too. So it will not cancel out all the sacrifices you're still having. Making a choice, you still will be always including something, or still will be selecting. This is right. But maybe you really want to be meeting under acknowledged conditions of uncertainty, or let's say unavailable complete certainty, and develop a great character that can be acting in that, because you don't want people relying on you being only great capable when you know everything. Everyone can be great and capable and all knowledge present, but you want to be great capable when knowledge is lacking. And when you realize this is value in itself, you can be choosing accordingly, allowing yourself to be freer with the exclusion and selection, and seeing as you go. And even maybe loving the uncertainty, because I think that's what people essentially also expect, and it's the kind of person that can not just choose uncertainty out of desperation, but having fun and joy in the conditions of uncertainty, because life is pretty much is a place of uncertainty. And the anxiety also is handle your anxiety. You're anxious not by choice. It's natural, but your physical symptoms like heart palpitation, or fainting or shaking hands, these can be the reactions of your brain that are faster than your cognition can manage it, than your cortex can rule it, right? So this maybe is communicated between thalamus and amygdala, and the path is faster than cortex, and so this is called a reptilian pathway, right? So in other words, this can be something that is done much faster than you could cognitively change it. But there are other things that now are handled by your brain, and this is the how are you going to react to that, right? What kind of actions you're going to take when your hands are shaking, when your heart is beating fast, when you're already terrified with what you need to do. And this can be regulated, especially when knowledge. And that has been on the topic of indecision.